I'm Hanson Hosein, a former journalist.
Hanson Hosein is an NBC News correspondent.
Hi, Lester. Well, it's quite an
Turned
amazing
filmmaker, turned educator,
We're in this incredible time of disruption.
and now the director of the Communication Leadership Graduate Program at the University of Washington in Seattle. In our program, we recognize Seattle as a storytelling capital of the 21st century. So in this season of Four Peaks, I'm setting out to connect with the business and creative leaders at the forefront of using storytelling to tackle today's biggest challenges. Join me on this ride. This is Four Peaks. On today's show, Bianca Giaever, an Emmy-award winning filmmaker and radio producer who at 26 has already established herself as one of the country's most promising young storytellers, producing short films that have gone viral and radio stories for powerhouses like This American Life, Radiolab, and Reply All. I met up with Bianca at the UW Club on campus for a lunchtime chat to ask her how she's able to create such consumable content and how she balances the artistic with the commercial. Well, Bianca, welcome, and thanks very much for joining us. We're
Thanks
just
for having
absolutely
me.
thrilled that you're
Yeah.
here. I want to get right into it. You are, I think, a remarkable storyteller. You've been drawing the stories since you were a kid, it seems. You know, how did you learn to even tell stories in the way that you do?
I don't know, just through listening to a lot of radio. That's pretty much how I started. I really liked This American Life. And I could stream a lot of their episodes online, so I did that a lot growing up. And then, yeah, just listening through This American Life, finding other people whose stories I admired. I read The Stranger a lot when I was probably
You're a
too
Seattle
young
girl,
to
aren't
be
you?
reading The Stranger. And there was a lot of writers I really looked up to because of the way that they were able to put their voice into their stories. Even when they were reporting on something or writing a theater review. And so, yeah, I kept trying to simultaneously find my voice and tell stories about other people, and kept playing with that basic idea in different mediums as I got older.
I mean, I used to be a journalist, and it was very hard for me to actually figure that out, but somebody at your young age, even as a teenager, thinking that you, A, wanted to tell stories, and B, that you had to have your own unique voice is actually quite unusual.
Yeah, I think it was becoming more of a trend in journalism when I was at that age to deliver some entertainment along with the news, like The Daily Show or whatever. And I was also deeply involved with my high school newspaper, so I also had a really good journalism teacher, and that could have been it too. So.
It's amazing because the stereotype of your generation is that you are into either more technological mediums or media, or more quick fixes, and to hear that you're really into print journalism and into public radio, which is very much seen as an aging demographic, is kind of unusual. Is it just because you're an old soul, or do you see substance there that just attracted you?
I don't know. I mean, I think a lot of young people listen to podcasts, so that's not super unusual, and those are definitely trendy right now. But I like those mediums for sure. It's also a stereotype that my generation is narcissistic, so maybe it's maybe there's a desire to put myself in the stories too or something. I don't know. Not sure.
What I do love is you seem to have a very entrepreneurial spirit, and we're here obviously in a higher education environment, and mentioned that you actually designed your own major in is it narrative studies?
Narrative studies.
How do you get a chance to actually create a major in storytelling like that?
A lot of schools have programs where you can make your own major and your own course of study. You have to be pretty committed to it because they put a lot of work into making majors that they know will be helpful to students, and so you really have to prove why couldn't you just be a joint English film major? There's lots of storytelling involved in that. Why won't that line of study work for you? But because I had been interested in that specific style of This American Life, storytelling since I was so young, I wanted to do that. And honestly, I just knew who the good teachers were, who were wise and delivered, great advice about life in general, and I just wanted to take classes with them. So I think it's more about proving to the school that you're not just trying to get out of requirements, that you really are doing something that's best for you. So.
And you clearly proved it. In fact, I'd like to actually base the rest of our time together on 3 specific pieces of media you've created, because you are a media maker. And might as well start with the one that was your original claim to fame, that while you were still in school, which is Scared is Scared. And so I'm just going to show a few seconds of that so folks here so they can see it,
Cool.
and then we can talk a little bit more about that.
So, did your mom tell you what I'm doing?
Yes.
Do you have any stories that you would want to be a movie?
No, I don't know. Maybe. I don't even know what happened yesterday. A movie with no words. No! You can show the word start in a box, and then you can make an equal sign, and then a box. Wait, the start would be orange. I mean, green. The box would be green, and the start would be white. I can tell you a little story. Ace a Bear and Toby Mouse story. It's an Ace a Bear and a Toby who's a mouse.
Okay, so we'll have someone pretend to be a bear and pretend to be a mouse.
Like somebody small and somebody big.
What struck me most about this is, well, there were 2 things. First of all, the style, but secondly, how you probably spent a lot of time actually casting to find the right person, that voice, the story that they told. How did you have the wherewithal to find this particular character?
Yeah, it was pretty informal. I had a film teacher who had a 6-year-old son. 6 years old seemed like a good age because, you're not withholding, but you can still tell a coherent story. And so then I just asked around for his friends, that 6-year-old's friend group, and offered free babysitting to those parents. And I interviewed only 3 or 4 kids.
Are you a good babysitter? I have to know. That's quite a thing to offer.
Yeah, not really. I mean, if good babysitting means recording the child, and interrogating them, then I'm a good babysitter. But so yeah, I just tried to talk to them for as long as I could, and the first 3 the stories weren't quite there. And then
what were you looking for? How did you know what you were looking for?
Well, I mean, a beginning, middle, and end, something that made sense, something that I was able to film with the resources that I had, and some sort of greater meaning to it, some bigger picture, what was the point of hearing this story, which ended up being a key part of it. And I was curious if 6-year-olds were capable of giving good advice, and if they could relate to me on an emotional level and connect to what I was feeling.
What was your conclusion on that?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. When I said to these kids, I'm feeling nervous or scared or not sure what to do, very common things that we all feel, they knew exactly what I meant and had their own coping mechanisms already.
And the advice was really profound. Just for those of you who haven't seen the video, it's a spoiler, unfortunately, but Scared is Scared. I was wondering, what does that really mean? But you get to the end, and basically, Scared is scared of people who think of good things, basically. Scared is scared of the good things. So you want to make Scared scared.
When the scared feeling comes into you, the scared is scared of things you like. So, I was scared of a monster, and I thought of pizza. And juice. And some meringues. And a cookie. Chocolate chip cookie.
That's really profound stuff for a 6-year-old and for us as well.
When he first said it, I had to think about it for a second. It was a tongue twister, but it makes sense. Once I got in his head, I was oh, that totally makes sense.
So, other than this being something you did within while you're still in college, it became really popular. In fact, it went viral. What explains the popularity of this particular piece of media?
It's hard for me to say. I mean, it's such a random X factor of what goes viral at any moment, but I think there is a longing from people to access that creativity they had as a child again. And I think like for a moment this helps people remember what that was like and sort of feel nostalgic for like when they were a kid, basically.
The joke is, especially in our professional world, that the client's always going to come and say, "Make me a viral video."
Definitely.
Are there any takeaways from this that you could say, "I could totally
No,
replicate this again"?
Really not. I mean, like if I knew, I would have made many more viral videos since then. I think like the only secret to making a viral video is like not trying to make a viral video.
It's like trying to be cool. You don't want to try to be cool because otherwise you're not cool.
Exactly. It's like this zen, like weird. Yeah. By avoiding it, then you actually hit it. But yeah, I think just like make good work that's like true to yourself, and then it may or may not even then go viral. But I think if you do that consistently, you might get lucky. That's the best you can hope for.
And just one more question about that particular piece of media. This remarkable combination of animation and characters and pacing. The pacing was great in terms of just how it moved along, but it still felt very conversational, not big, voice of God media from television or radio or whatever else.
Yeah.
How did you figure that out? Is it storyboarding and just knowing where things fall into place?
No, I never storyboarded. First I made the audio edit only before I even thought about visuals. So I just had a conversation with him, and, based on the experience I had editing radio stories for a while, just in my own taste and like my gut feeling about what was interesting, what's not. That was like all I was going off of. I wasn't really thinking about like story arc or structure. I knew like two things. One, like, there should be some like, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then some like point to it, so that you didn't feel like you had completely wasted your time watching it. And so, just going off of those two things, I didn't have a lot of time. This was for a class that was like a 3.5-week class, and like the first week I wasn't even very productive. So the whole thing happened in 2 weeks. I think I edited it in like one day. Wow. And played it for my teacher, and even then it wasn't clear that that like anyone would keep watching this or that it would be interesting. And
did you get the best mark in the class? Best grade?
Well, it was an independent study.
Oh, okay.
So.
All right. I know all about the independent studies.
And it actually wasn't even for credit because I already had all my credits.
Oh,
so
okay.
This is just like a personal challenge, kind of.
So the second piece of media I want to discuss with you is a radio piece. And before I ask you about it, because it's one of the most remarkable things I've heard in a very long time, is I was having a challenge trying to figure out what I call you, because I first heard about you as somebody who really gets podcasting, a podcasting expert. Then I realized you make amazing films and you produce things as well. What are you?
I usually say radio producer and filmmaker.
Those used to be antithetical to each other, even like a few years ago.
Really?
It's amazing. Yeah, the idea of putting the two together, because one was one medium and one was the other, right?
Yeah, I mean, most of the professional stuff I've done so far has either been like a radio story or a short internet video. So those are like the two things I make, but possibly expanding.
Well, the radio story I'm going to play now is on Bianca's site called Dare Hector, and it was on Radiolab a few years ago. And what strikes me about this is there's this wonderful sort of aha early on in the story, but it's amazing to me how Bianca actually found this character in the first place as she was biking through, I think, Tennessee, right?
Yeah.
So I'm going to play a few seconds from that.
So yeah, where would be the best place to start?
I mean, I think the story starts when he decided to move to Atlanta, because that's where Patricia was, his daughter.
Okay.
He had fought in the war.
As a combat engineer.
World War II.
I was not a good soldier.
Went to Harvard, got a degree, met his wife Susie, and then
I did join the civil rights work in the 60s.
I think when Hector heard about the civil rights movement, he actually packed up his bags, moved to the neighborhood where Martin Luther King lived.
We rented a house.
And said, what can I do to help?
I felt I wouldn't really understand what was going on unless I lived there.
And that's when he meets Patricia, girl in the neighborhood who came over all the time, just like a lot of kids, but she stuck around longer than anyone else. And at 11 years old, she asked them, will you adopt me? Why don't you explain? Did you adopt Patricia? What happened? How'd you
know her? Her mom was an alcoholic. Sometimes she drank up the rent money, and the kids were out on the street with their mom and dad. Mom, there was no dad. And so we took them in. She was very shy. She had impetigo sores on her legs, nappy-headed. No, her mama never braided her hair. She was just really a neglected child. And so she just blossomed.
She got into reading, sewing, painting.
She made all her own clothes. She was making bridal gowns as a second source of income.
And then she went off to college. She came back and started teaching kids to read. She even took in a few kids, just like he had done.
Adopted a couple of kids?
Yeah.
She's a wonderful child.
So unfortunately, the whole story changes now in November of 2000 because that's when Patricia was murdered.
Ivan Simpson is the name of the man who killed her.
Blinded there. Incredibly conversational. The way you wove in both the host of the show and your main character was amazing. And then that incredible punctuation point that just punches you in the gut.
Yeah.
And the fact that you just found this guy randomly as you're biking through the state is just, remarkable.
Yeah. Well, that's all Radiolab's doing on the sound design and the editing and the pacing and everything. Definitely. That's their brand and their whole.
But you found the story.
Yes. Yeah.
Why this story? How this story?
Well, I got a grant to bicycle across the country looking for military stories. It's a grant called Davis Projects for Peace and stories of veterans acclimating, becoming home. And I ended up finding the story that had nothing to do with that, but was like the best story I found. So and like the goal of the trip was to be out there just like meeting people, looking for stories in like kind of an inefficient way, like to just like be out in the world, like hoping that someone's gonna have had something amazing.
And how do you approach a 90-year-old guy in a farm field in Tennessee?
Right. Well, in this case, we were staying at a bunch of different like communes in Tennessee, and we stayed at this place called Short Mountain Farms, and he was staying there as well. It's like a trans queer commune, and Hector came out as gay like really late in life.
He was 75 or something like that.
Yeah,
wasn't
something.
it?
I think 70. Yeah, like 76 maybe. And so he had a deal with his wife where he would come here like one weekend a month. And so he was there, and I just said, hey, like I'm looking for interesting stories, and everyone was like, you have to talk to Hector. He has this crazy story. His daughter was murdered. He keeps in touch with the murder. They just told me those facts.
So that's the other punchline to the story for those who haven't seen it, that Hector actually became, I don't know if they became friends, but he actually started corresponding with the murderer of his daughter while he's in prison. And just to see that amazing interaction going back and forth is incredible.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy story. And it actually got rejected from a lot of shows, which is even crazier. Because they're like, to me...
So how did you stick with it to get it out there?
Yeah, it was just luck with like the right theme coming up at Radiolab. I had friends at Radiolab. We were going to do a different story. I'd pitch them. It was just like being in the room a lot, like pitching and like hustling basically. And then getting lucky and then being like, oh, this story would work. I did it first for a radio website called Transom. We did like a shorter, like 10 or 12 minute version from the original interview. And then for Radiolab, I flew back with a producer named Andy Mills, and we did the story together from that. But yeah, Radiolab has a very specific way of doing things.
Yeah,
so
but I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I thought it was really a great piece of journalism because you found that story. The last piece of content I want to play is different because, up to now I've seen you and I've heard you as a journalist and somebody who finds stories, and this one is different because you actually are now going on the commercial side of things.
Selling out.
And it's interesting to us because the graduate program that I help lead is really fundamentally looking at how organizations can tell stories to connect to their constituents. And the constituents can be audience, it can be voters, it can be people buying a product. And so how do you do this in an authentic way? And I just wanted to play a few minutes of this. This is an ad for JetBlue, but it's branded content, so people watch it for entertainment purposes as well. And just get a sense of how this felt and what was some of your thinking that went into this. So this is something called Human Kinder, right? Kinda. Human Kinda.
Our nation is facing a problem. It affects every single one of us. Every man, child, woman, child. People don't have time to do anything. They go from here to there to there to here. Some people have 2 cell phones. Kids have karate practice. Everyone is so busy. Why? Are we losing our humanity? Is humankind becoming human-kinda? Oh, that's good. Write that down, actually. I wanted to find some answers. And I think I might have. Hi, I'm Sam Richardson. Actor, comedian, collector of clocks. I went from LA to New York to DC to Florida to Miami, which is in Florida. Then I took a personal trip to Seattle. It was nice. I've talked to swamis and ducks, even an elephant. By the end of this documentary, I hope to answer the question, why are we so busy? Or as my elephant friend said, Friff. Follow me into this adventure.
Definitely has some of your humor and quirkiness and pacing in it,
Yeah.
but you're not on camera this time. You've got somebody else. You're producing this.
Definitely.
How did this feel as a piece of media compared to what you've done in the past?
Right. I mean, very different because it's like, it's very much for a brand. They commissioned it on this topic of their choice.
You
Which
probably got paid better than you have in other projects. right?
Definitely, yeah. And so they wanted to make a film about people being very busy, which, like, there's no news beat there. Like, you probably wouldn't do a story for, like, Radiolab and being like, people are busy. There would be, like, a more specific angle. But it was with Sam Richardson, who's, like, amazing talent, and I love improv comedy, and it was very open-ended, and it was fun to get to do a lot of improv. And if I'm going to do branded content, I really like to do comedy because it doesn't take itself so seriously, and it feels a little less manipulative to me because it's not like you have to go out and find this super emotional story to sell a product. It's like, I don't know, it's just more like lighthearted and an opportunity to like do something fun.
So was it successful in your mind? This piece of content in terms of what you wanted to accomplish as a creator and what the brand wanted to accomplish?
It's so hard for me to say like if anything was successful because I'm like have a lot of self-doubt all the time. So I don't know. But yeah, I mean, as far as I know, the brand was happy and the agency was happy. And
will you keep doing it?
yeah, I mean, I'm figuring out, like, will I keep making money? Like, yes, I need to live. But I'm getting better at figuring out which commercials make sense for me to do, that I feel good doing, and that I like doing. And this was, like, just the first go at that. And so definitely the longer I do it, I think the more experience I'll have, like, choosing which commercials I want to do, or we'll see if I even continue getting opportunities to do commercials, you know. That's a huge part of it. But, yeah, this was fun. Yeah.
That's good. That's good to hear. So I covered the three pieces of media I wanted to discuss just to get a better sense of your work. One of the premises of the graduate program that we have is that we are in a historic time of change. Change is getting faster because some of the technologies that we explore. And because of that, it's creating new kinds of problems with new kinds of solutions. And just wondering, in terms of your work and the way you see the world, are there any wicked problems out there, or one wicked problem that you think I want to tackle or I'm working on that we should know about?
Like a big, huge
It could be an epic thing, or it could just be something that's just specific to your world.
Yeah, I mean, it does feel like everything's getting a lot faster and shorter right now, and like trying to get you to click it, and there's like so many videos online that it makes me not even want to make videos. It's just like, I cannot compete in this space. Like, it's just so, and I don't want to feel like I'm like tricking people to watch my video, or like I have to come out with something really like sexy and like juicy in the first like 30 seconds to keep them watching. So if anything, I'm moving toward like slower mediums and slower stories. And
So the slow food movement and the slow story
slow
movement?
media movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, seriously. No, I honestly think it might start going that direction because it just feels so overwhelming. Like, who can keep up with all this like short, tiny content? And I think there is a response when people, you know, the key is just make stuff that's good, and and it's better if you put more time into it, right? And I feel like a lot of people working in media, sadly, just aren't given a lot of time to work on their stories because it's all about like producing lots of content to like keep up and make money. But like when there are stories that people put a lot of time into, like Serial or something, where they work a year on it, like I feel like it gets a really good response because people are hungry for those pieces that are slower and just better and more researched and executed with intention and thought. And so I just want to keep doing that.
So let's conclude our interview with the typical, stereotypical, only time will tell question. You know, so what story would you just love to tell next, then, based on that?
Oh God, if I knew that, I would be doing it already. Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, I don't know. I don't have like these. I don't like great ideas that are just like constantly lined up for me. It's a lot of like searching and then like doubting them and then thinking, okay, maybe I should do them, and then doubting them again. You know, it's not so black and white as like, you know, there's no like, I don't have this like manic confidence that like, this is the thing I must do, you know? It's really a lot like hazier than that usually.
Very
all
serendipitous,
present.
isn't it?
Yeah, just sort of like, okay, I like this person, I have this idea, maybe we could do this, so maybe the timing and funding will work. It's a lot of like boring logistical things.
It's a heck of a way to make a living. Because it's not particularly planned, is it?
It's really not planned. It's really nerve-wracking. Yeah, I think a huge part of like making it is just being okay with that unplannedness, and just like the ability to like not freak out when you don't know what you're doing next is like a huge part of it. And like, so a lot of the people who like succeed and end up doing it, I think, are ones who were like, especially when you're doing more artistic related things, the ones who are like willing to be okay with not having a job for a little while and just like eating beans a lot and just seeing how it goes, you know. So yeah, and with journalism, a lot of it's just like hustling and pitching a lot. So, and that's part of it too.
Well, somebody who studies storytelling, I think you've actually been very successful so far. So, Bianca, thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your thoughts with us.
Thank you.
It was a real pleasure.
Yeah.
Thanks. My colleague Anita Verna Crofts teaches a foundational class in leadership through the lens of creativity and narrative. Her final assignment, to solve a communication problem in a way that is both novel and useful. In the last session of each class, students present their projects to each other while Anita and I look on. Afterwards, the students vote to choose the most successful projects. This season on Four Peaks, we showcase the top vote getters.
My name is Jacob Christensen. My project was a video called Have We Cured Deafness? And I basically got deaf and hearing people in a room, and I filmed them, asking them about how they felt about cochlear implants.
What Jacob's project did is really get into the conversation around identity and also how we as societies address certain communities and consider disability.
A lot of hearing people say, like, you can't hear, you need cochlear implants, like, we need to fix you. But to a lot of the deaf community, they don't see themselves as having a disability, they see it as like, we just communicate in a different way than you.
Even though the assignment was set up to be a communication dilemma that needed to be solved, what Jacob's film demonstrated is that not every dilemma has a solution or one solution, but instead sometimes dilemmas require a deeper level of understanding.
When the video went public, it got over 250,000 views, which mind-blowing, also like really humbling. And you know, it's just like a conversation that's ready to be had for a lot of deaf people, so I think there were a lot of shares in the deaf community.
That's our show. Thanks for joining me on this ride. Come along next time as we continue to explore the intersection between creativity and story. For more, go to fourpeaks.org.